I didn't start this diary because I wanted to. I started it because I needed to remember what the first night felt like, in case we didn't get a second one. This is not a story about panic. It's a record of what we did, and why we stayed alive. A Prepper's Diary, The First Blast. Entry 4, The Long Night. Evening. The illusion of normal. It was somewhere between 7 and 8 when we finally ate something that felt like food. Not just calories, not just open and dump. A real warm meal. The kind you don't appreciate until the world stops giving them to you. My wife had been rationing the little things without saying it out loud. Paper towels, wipes, the last clean dish rag. She was doing bathroom duty like it was a job, keeping the boys moving in a rhythm so none of it turned into panic. A bucket, a lid, a trash bag, a sprinkle of lime, hand sanitizer. The same instructions over and over. Calm voice, no sharp edges. The lights in the storage room were on, but only because I'd forced them to be. 2 LED strips along the beam, a dim lantern in the corner, and that little battery fan that kept the air filter pulling. The filter wasn't quiet anymore. It had a tired sound, like a person breathing through a straw. The panels outside, 200 watts total, 2 folding 100-watt panels, had bought us time. Not safety. Time. In the afternoon, they'd been decent. Even through haze, they were still pushing a little, enough to top off the batteries if nothing else changed. But something did change. The light outside had started to look wrong. Not dark, just muted. A dirty kind of overcast that didn't belong to weather. The kind of sky you see in old photographs after a big fire, when the sun looks like it's behind frosted glass. The boys didn't know any of this. The youngest was on my wife's lap, warm cheeks, little hands, half asleep and fussy. The middle one was lining up some batteries on the floor like toy soldiers. And my oldest, 8 years old, had been quiet for hours. Not scared loud, scared quiet. He sat with his back against a tote, knees pulled up, watching everything without asking questions. Because he'd learned questions didn't change answers. We ate. We smiled when they looked at us. We tried to talk about normal things, but normal is a costume, and it starts to itch when you've worn it too long. I checked the battery readout twice while my wife wasn't looking. 83%, 79. Then it stabilized again as the panels trickled in a little charge. A slow drip, a faucet you can't trust. I told myself, this is fine. I told myself, this is temporary. I told myself a lot of things. Then my youngest started coughing. Night, the cough. It began like a throat tickle. A small cough that sounded more annoying than dangerous. My wife shifted him on her lap, rubbed his back, and he settled. Then 10 minutes later, it happened again. Cough. Pause. Cough, cough. And then that little inhale that makes a parent's brain light up like a warning panel. My wife looked at me without saying anything. That look is a language. It means, do something. It means, fix it. It means, tell me we're not going to lose him. I moved closer and put my hand on his chest. Warm, fast breathing, not frantic yet. I leaned close and listened. There was a sound under the cough, faint but there, a tightness. My mind started doing what it always does when it's scared. It turned into a checklist: fever, rash, vomiting, confusion, trouble breathing, blue lips, wheezing. He wasn't vomiting. He wasn't confused. He was just tired and coughing. And that scared me more than it should have, because in my head, everything led back to the same place. Fallout, radiation, contamination, the invisible stuff. My wife whispered, "He's getting worse." I nodded like I knew what to do. The truth was, I knew what to do when the problem had a label: a broken pipe, a dead battery, a pantry that needed stocking. But a sick kid? A sick kid in a world where the hospital might not exist anymore? That was a different kind of problem. We laid him down on the sleeping pad and propped him up with a rolled blanket. My wife sat beside him, one hand on his back, feeling every breath. I went back to the totes, medicine bin, first aid bag, respiratory. I pulled out what I could: kids' fever reducer, cough syrup, a thermometer, a pulse oximeter I'd bought on a whim years ago, saline spray, Vicks, a spare N95 I wasn't even sure mattered anymore. I took his temperature, a mild fever, not terrible. I checked his oxygen, 96. That number should have calmed me down. It didn't, because it wasn't the number that mattered. It was the trend. The cough came in waves. He'd settle for a while, then his chest would tighten again, and he'd wake up coughing like something was squeezing him from the inside. Time moved wrong down here. There was no window, no clocks that meant anything. Just the dim light and the hum of the filter that we were running on borrowed time. I sat there and listened to my son breathe, and my brain started doing another thing it does when it's trying to protect itself. It started arguing with itself. It's just a cold. Kids get sick. He'll be fine. Then, what if it isn't a cold? What if this is something else? What if it's the air? The air. The thing we'd been treating like the enemy since the blast. I thought about the filter upstairs, the duct tape, the plastic sheeting, the sealed door, all the work, all the preparation, and still, the air could be the thing that killed us. My wife whispered, "What do we do?" I opened my mouth and nothing came out, because the real answer was, we do what we can, and we hope. Late night, the temptation. The cough got worse around midnight, not dramatically, not like a movie, just slowly, like a hand turning a knob, tighter, more frequent, less rest between. He started coughing until his eyes watered. My wife's face went pale in the lantern light. She looked at me again. That look, fix it. I dug deeper into the bin, and I found the thing I'd almost forgotten I'd packed. A small container, sealed, labeled in black marker, fish antibiotics. I'd bought them years ago, back when collapse was something you said half-jokingly. Back when buying something like that felt like a rebellious little secret, not something you'd ever use, not in normal life, Not when you could go to urgent care and get a prescription like a normal person. But normal life was gone, and here it was. A solution that wasn't a solution. A choice that was really a question. Are you willing to gamble your child's body on something you cannot truly verify? My wife noticed my hesitation. She whispered, "What is that?" I didn't want to say it, because saying it made it real. I said, "It's antibiotics." She stared at it, then at me, then at our son, and in her eyes I saw it. That terrible math every parent knows. Risk versus risk. Fear versus fear. I sat there with that bottle in my hand, and I realized something I'd never understood when I bought it. Preparedness doesn't always make the decision easier. Sometimes it makes it heavier, because now the option exists. Now you're responsible for choosing it. Or not. I ran through symptoms again, forcing myself to stay rational. Fever, mild, oxygen, still okay. Cough, worse. Wheeze, maybe. Chest tightness, yes. Could it be bacterial? Maybe. Could it be viral? Probably. Could antibiotics help? Only if I guessed right. Could antibiotics harm? Absolutely. And then the thought that stopped me cold. If I give him something wrong, and he gets worse, I will never forgive myself. I put the bottle down. I didn't throw it away. I didn't judge myself for having it. I just set it aside, not because I was certain, because I wasn't. I told my wife, "Not yet." She nodded. She didn't fight me. She just kept rubbing his back in slow circles, like she could physically push the sickness out. And we made it through the next wave, then the next, then the next. In the dark, with a tired air filter and a dying solar trickle, we did what parents have done forever. We stayed awake and listened to our child breathe. Early morning, the broadcast. It was sometime after 3 when the radio finally changed. Not the static, not the emergency tone, the voice. A real broadcast voice, clearer than anything we'd heard since the first blast. For a second I didn't move, because the sudden normalcy of it felt wrong, like hearing music in a graveyard. I turned the volume down, just enough. My wife looked at me. The boys were mostly asleep. Mostly. My oldest wasn't. He was lying still with his eyes closed, but I knew that trick. He was listening. The voice said,
"This is a national emergency update. This message is being relayed through surviving broadcast infrastructure. If you can hear this, remain sheltered. Remain calm. Do not travel unless absolutely necessary."
A pause. And then the part that made my stomach go tight.
"Confirmed detonations have occurred in multiple U.S. cities."
My wife's hand froze on our son's back. I leaned closer to the radio. The voice continued, steadier than any human should be allowed to sound.
"Chicago, St. Louis, and New York City, Washington, and D.C.
My wife made a small sound, like air escaping. I didn't. I couldn't. Because my brain had already left the room. It was moving across a map. The anchor's voice went on.
"Initial investigation indicates this was not a conventional foreign missile launch. Evidence suggests a coordinated cyber attack targeted U.S. nuclear command and control systems, resulting in unauthorized launches and catastrophic failures across multiple silos.
A pause as if to let the meaning sink in. Then the sentence that changed everything. Our own weapons were used against us. I looked at my wife. I didn't want to say it out loud, but I had to. I whispered. It wasn't just one. She whispered back, How many? I didn't answer, because the number didn't matter. The permanence did. My oldest shifted slightly, so slight you'd miss it if you weren't his father. He heard. He understood enough. And that broke my heart in a way the blast never could. Because bombs are outside. This was inside. The broadcast continued with instructions. Shelter, ration, avoid travel, conserve resources. But the words were falling through me, because the only thing my mind could hold was a single thought, repeating like a drumbeat. This is not a weekend. This is not a storm. This is not going back. The math, Chicago, and the wind. When the broadcast faded back into static, I didn't move for a long time. My wife whispered, What does it mean for us? That question, the one every person asks when disaster becomes real. What does it mean for me? For my kids? For my house? For this room we'd turned into a bunker? I took a slow breath and forced my thoughts into something I could control. Numbers, distance, time. The only tools that still obeyed rules. Chicago, I said quietly. Chicago is the one that matters most for us. We were in Michigan, south central Michigan. Not right on the border, not on the coast, but not far enough to pretend we weren't connected to the rest of the world. If the wind did what the wind usually does, we were downwind. I closed my eyes and pictured the map. Chicago to here, roughly a couple 100 miles, give or take. I didn't need perfection. I needed order of magnitude. How fast is the wind? I whispered to myself. I didn't know, not exactly, but I'd heard it in the first alerts. I'd felt the way the trees moved before we sealed up. It wasn't a calm day, maybe 20 miles an hour, maybe 30. It didn't have to be exact if it was moving at around 30 miles an hour, and the distance was around 200 miles. 200 divided by 30, about 6 to 7 hours. Fallout travel time. If the worst of it formed and moved with the wind, the leading edge could reach us within hours. And the thing about fallout, the part nobody wants to say out loud, is that time is everything. Radiation drops fast at first, not because it's gone, because the most dangerous stuff burns out quickly. I'd read about it years ago, the rule of sevens. 7 hours after detonation, radiation drops to about 1/10 of what it was. 49 hours, about 2 days, down to about 1/100th. It wasn't a magic shield, it was math. My wife whispered, So, how bad is it outside? I stared at the floor, and I did the hardest thing a prepper can do. I admitted uncertainty. I don't know, I said. Not exactly. Then I forced myself forward, but I can estimate. I pictured the numbers the way I'd read them in books and manuals. Ground zero can be unimaginably high right after a detonation. Thousands of rads per hour in the worst zones. But we weren't ground zero. We were far. Distance and dilution matter, and not all of the fallout would even reach us. Some drops closer, some blows off, some never makes it. If Chicago was a source, and it took roughly 7 hours for the plume to reach us, then by the time the worst of it arrived, the radiation level in that dust would already be lower than it was immediately after. Not safe. Lower. And then there's the fraction. Even if the plume came our way, we wouldn't get Chicago-level fallout. We'd get a slice of it. 10%, 20%, something like that. Enough to kill you with time. Enough to make outside a place you don't go casually anymore. I spoke softly, more to myself than to her. If the source was extreme, right after, say 1,000 rads per hour near the worst areas, and by the time it gets here, it's decayed and thinned. I swallowed. Then we could be looking at tens of rads per hour outside at the worst of it. Maybe more, maybe less. My wife's eyes widened slightly. Tens. That word is a knife. Not instant death. Not harmless. A slow problem. The kind that forces you to make choices that feel wrong no matter what. And now? She asked. I glanced at the dim light, the tired filter. Now it's been about a day, I said. 24 hours. Not 7, not 49. But enough time for the steep drop at the beginning. If it was, say 50 to 70 rads per hour when the main dust first reached our area, I whispered, careful, steady. Then a day later, it could be down to 20 or 30, something like that. I held up a hand quickly before she could grab onto the numbers like certainty. That's not a promise. It's an estimate. She stared at the floor. 20 or 30, she repeated like tasting the words. I nodded. That's still not something you live in, I said. That's still limit exposure. Minutes, not hours. She nodded slowly. And then her eyes went to our son, and the math changed, because math is one thing, a coughing child is another. The realization. Asthma. My son coughed again, tighter than before. He sat up, eyes glossy, trying to pull air like he was drinking through a straw. My wife shifted him, propped him higher, rubbed his back. He wheezed. And in that wheeze, clearer now, unmistakable, something clicked in my head. Asthma, not the abstract concept, not some kids have it. Asthma as a threat. Asthma as a thing that can turn a bad night into a funeral. My wife whispered, "He needs his inhaler." And I felt a cold wave roll through me, because I knew exactly where it was. Not down here, not in the bins, not in the go bags, not in the medical tote. The spare. The backup bottle we'd meant to bring inside. The one that had stayed in the van because the day had become chaos too fast. Parked in our driveway. Outside. In the world. My wife's eyes filled with fear that had been waiting all day. "I thought you put it in here," she whispered. I didn't defend myself, because she was right. I should have. I should have. I should have. That phrase is poison during collapse. It doesn't help. It just burns. I took my son's oxygen again. 94. Still okay, but trending. Always trending. The fish antibiotics sat in my mind like a shadow. Not relevant now. Not the right tool, not the right problem. This wasn't infection. This was constriction. This was a narrowing future. My wife whispered, "Can you go get it?" And I looked at her like she'd asked me to walk into fire, because in a way she had. I thought about the outside, about dust, about invisible numbers, about wind, about radiation levels that didn't care how good a father I was. I whispered, "Not tonight." Her face tightened. I didn't blame her. If I were her, I would have hated me in that moment. But I forced myself to stay steady. "It's dark," I said. "We're exhausted. The levels are still high. I need to do it right." She stared at me. Then she nodded once. Because she understood what I meant. If I went outside, panicked and sloppy, I might not come back. And then what? We spent the rest of the night managing. Steam from a small cup of warmed water to help his breathing. Slow sips. Positioning. Saline. My wife's hand never left his back. My hand never left the battery readout. We traded roles without speaking. Her job was keeping him calm. My job was keeping the room alive. The filter hummed. Then it dipped. Then it hummed again. The panels outside weren't doing much now. The overcast had thickened. Whether it was weather or ash or fallout haze, I didn't know. I just knew the solar input was barely a trickle, and the battery percentage was doing the slow walk downward. 72, 68, 65. Every number a reminder we were not in control. We were negotiating. Morning, the decision. At some point the cough eased, not gone, just less aggressive. My son finally slept, not deep, not peaceful, but asleep. My wife leaned back against the wall, eyes half closed, still listening like a radar. The middle boy was curled into a ball under a blanket. And my oldest was staring at the ceiling. I met his eyes. He didn't ask anything. He just looked at me like he already knew the answers. And that's when it hit me. Harder than the broadcast. Harder than the math. My kids were going to remember this as the night everything changed. Not the blast. Not the sirens. This. The dark. The coughing. The whispering. The quiet fear. The way their parents tried to be steady while the world crumbled. The light outside began to shift. Not sunlight exactly. More like the world becoming less black. A dull gray bleeding into the edges of everything. Morning. Morning should have felt like relief. It didn't. It felt like a deadline. Because morning meant I had to do what I'd been promising myself I could avoid. Morning meant the van. Morning meant opening the door. Morning meant stepping into the world that had become numbers. Tens of rads per hour. Minutes, not hours. A risk you can't feel until it's too late. I looked at the battery readout again. 58%. The filter was still running, but it sounded weaker, like it was tired of saving us. My wife opened her eyes. She whispered, "Is it morning?" I nodded. She whispered, "Are you going?" I didn't answer right away, because saying yes made it real. I looked at my youngest, still sleeping, mouth slightly open, breathing shallow but steady. I looked at my wife, hair messy, face drawn, but still holding the line. I looked at my oldest, awake, absorbing everything like a man trapped in a child's body. And I realized something else, something I hadn't wanted to admit since the first blast. This wasn't about riding out a crisis. This was about building a life inside the ruins of the old one. I whispered, "I'm going." My wife didn't nod. She didn't cry. She just reached for my hand and held it like she was anchoring me to the world. I squeezed back, and in my head I saw the driveway, the van, the medicine inside it, the air outside, the dust you can't see, the numbers you can't ignore. The morning light grew a little brighter, and the world didn't feel new. It felt permanent. And I understood finally, with a clarity that hurt, nothing was going back to normal. Not after this. Not ever.